Hello and welcome back to WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm George Upper, editor-in-chief of the Western Journal. I need to pause for just a moment to give you all a chance to grab your popcorn. This is going to be a big one. You're not gonna want to break away for snacks. You just want to have snacks at the ready. It's too important. You're not going to want to miss a moment of today's episode. So while I'm introducing us, go grab whatever it is you need to do. Go do that thing because you don't want to miss the rest of the show. This is a big one. Before we get into it, let me remind you, as I always do, to click that subscribe button and then on the bell next to it so that you'll always get the truth about the news of the day from people you trust at the Western Journal. As I mentioned on Wednesday's show this week, those trusted people include even our editorial interns, like this young man here, who go through a strict screening process before we let them become a part of the team at the Western Journal, because once they're here, we do in fact consider them part of the team. Our editorial interns do not come here and get coffee for me all day long. That's no more than 2 or 3 hours of their day. The rest of the time, they're writing stories, they're doing research, they're assigning stories to other writers, they're editing, they're working on video products. They are actually learning conservative journalism because part of our mission at the Western Journal, a mission that you can help with, I'll tell you a little bit about that a little later, but part of our mission is to raise up that next generation of conservative journalists. It's an important part of what we do here. You can help. We'll talk about how you can help in just a few minutes. Today on WJ Live, we'll be talking about the joys of a democratic administration, the joys of working in one, the joys of being, which assignment editor Joey Chester will describe for us, the joys of being prosecuted or maybe persecuted by one. I'll let you try to figure that out when we get to that story. But first, editorial intern Grant Atkinson has what has been the top story at Western Journal for 3 days straight now. Grant.
Yes, this is a really interesting one. It came out 2 days ago on Wednesday, actually. We didn't get a chance to talk about it on Wednesday's podcast. But the story is about LeBron James. Earlier this week, he sent out a tweet discussing the current NBA season, how he's frustrated with the way the offseason went and the shortened nature of it due to COVID.
Well, he's had plenty of time to be frustrated by it because he hasn't actually been playing.
Yeah, he was actually eliminated in the first round of the playoffs.
Lots of time to think.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
by our very own Phoenix Suns here, which I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that and the fact that they are going to go to the finals.
They've been doing okay this
They've been
year.
doing pretty well.
Cool.
Yeah,
They've been doing all right.
Yeah.
So as LeBron sits at home on his couch, he's been thinking about this. He's had time to fire off some tweets, and I'll just read a little bit of what he said. He said, quote, "They all didn't want to listen to me about the start of the season. I knew exactly what would happen. I only wanted to protect the well-being of these players, which ultimately is the product and benefit of our game. These injuries isn't just part of game. It's the lack of pure rest before starting back up." He went on to say, "This is the best time of the year for our league and fans, but missing a ton of our fave players. It's insane. If there's one person that know about the body and how it work all year round, it me."
Why does he talk like that?
I don't know why he
like that.
Why he writes like that. I don't know if he talks like that. He seems like a pretty well-spoken guy, so I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe it's just he was worked up.
He hasn't had enough time since the end of the season to rest his thumbs.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
As he's tweeting, they're just all. He has no control of that.
Yeah, he has to.
He needs more rest.
Yeah,
pure rest.
The least
Pure
amount of
rest.
characters is the best for him.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that's what that was. So then on Wednesday, Shaquille O'Neal, another NBA great in his own right, came out and made some comments. He didn't particularly mention LeBron by name, but it's pretty obvious what he's referring to here. I think we have a clip of Shaquille and what he had to say.
We're living in a world where 440 million people has been laid off, and I'm making 200 million. You won't get no complaining from me. Hey, if I got to play back to back, and I'm making all that money, I just got to do what the job entitles to me. I'm not knocking what anybody said, but me personally, I don't complain or make excuses.
I find it pretty interesting. He said, I'm not knocking what anybody said, But then
which tells you that he knows somebody said something.
He knows he's
something was said.
right. It's almost like he realizes he might get some backlash for this because there are a lot of LeBron fans out there. He's one of the best to ever play the game. As much as I may disagree with his politics, he's a great basketball player, and so he has a lot of fans. But to Shaquille's point, LeBron, he made $39 million this year alone to play basketball. He signed an $85 million 2-year extension at the end of last season during that short off season that he had with no time to rest. He had plenty of time to make $85 million, though. He'll make over $40 million for each of the next 2 seasons, according to ESPN, on his current contract. So it's not like he is, starved for money. It's not like he's got a real terrible life. I know, professional sports are difficult, but it's all, it's all.
But he's making over $100,000 a day,
right?
7 days a week,
right?
And I bet you we work more in a week than he does.
If you count it by the hours, I suspect that's true.
Yeah,
and that's what Shaquille O'Neal said. He was talking about, we go to the gym, we practice 2 hours a day or so, and then sometimes we have a game for 3 hours, and that's what we do, and we make this much money.
Yeah,
and so I guess
and by we, I mean you. I mean I don't do any work around here, but you guys,
we pay,
especially the interns,
right?
We overwork them.
Yeah.
We violate all sorts of federal laws.
Right. It's all part of the hazing process.
Yeah, exactly.
You pay our salary. Right.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. That's how this works.
Right. But I guess my question, just regarding this LeBron and Shaquille O'Neal saga, is during a time when you've got families who are struggling to put food on the table, struggling to pay mortgages. And that's something that a lot of NBA players have been really outspoken about. They're obviously aware of what's going on. It's very clear. How can LeBron be this tone deaf that he's going to make a comment like this when he realizes, other people are struggling to provide for their family? Like, how is he not aware of how this comment's going to come across, do you think?
Man, we see so many instances of this from either celebrities or athletes or politicians who are so incredibly tone deaf. You guys remember even with Nancy Pelosi, right when COVID started, with the $30,000 refrigerators and pulling the ice cream out, while there's millions of Americans starving and out of work. And now we have LeBron James complaining about making hundreds of millions of dollars, but he's overworked, while there's still literally millions of Americans out of work, on the verge of losing their house. They could be going bankrupt. Like, it is so tone deaf. And personally, I think if you're employed, you don't really have the right to complain to the world, and especially when you're making hundreds of millions of dollars while there's all these people unemployed. I don't think that's something you should do. I think what he did, what he said, is just horrible. It's nasty towards probably a large portion of his fans. I mean, I imagine there's LeBron fans who are out of work and have to sit and listen to him preach and complain about all the money he's making and how overworked he is.
Not to go too much into a California rant, but LeBron plays in Los Angeles. That's a city that's been shut down for a long time.
10% unemployment there.
Yeah. Probably my favorite part of his rant was the how disappointed viewers are to not be able to watch their favorite players. I mean, I have a feeling there's maybe a Chris Paul fan out there who's like, what are you talking about there, LeBron? Or, there are plenty of good players playing. It's the playoffs. There are plenty of good players playing. Yeah. Talk about sour grapes. I mean, the fans want to see me and they can't. That's so sad.
I bet you that's what's driving this.
Of course that's what's driving this.
Well, yes,
that's it.
His co-All-NBA player, Anthony Davis, got hurt. They got eliminated in the first round, and that's a big reason that he's angry.
This is all about self-centeredness. Tone deaf is exactly the right word for it, Grant. He, like elites in any area of life, as you said, Joey, we hear this from athletes, we hear it from celebrities, we hear it from politicians, we hear it from anybody who feels entitled to the life that they have now.
That's the perfect word.
And that's, I mean, look, LeBron came from nothing, but from middle school, his way has been paid for him. He had the same coach, if I recall correctly, he had the same coach in middle school who followed him through high school.
Wow.
In private institutions,
Yeah.
private educational institutions, which were paid for him because of his athletic prowess. Now, I don't begrudge him that at all. That's how the free market works. He's
Totally.
got skills that people want to see. They want to see him use these things, and he gets something in return for that. Great. I have no problem with that at all. But it is, I think it takes a special kind of person to be told year after year after year after year, man, you're the best we've ever seen, and not start to think that that matters. Look, he could be the best we've ever seen. I would disagree with that. I have some other favorites, but certainly he's among the top, right? That doesn't make him any more valuable in any significant way than you or me or anybody else on the planet. We are all equal. That's how the country is supposed to work. LeBron clearly doesn't think that. He just doesn't think it that way.
Yeah, I think you mentioned he came from nothing. It's disappointing. He brands himself as, this kid from Akron who came from a difficult upbringing, and that's great. He could use that to be relatable. He could say, look where I came from. I'm here. I'm very successful. And instead, it's I'm going to forget kind of the plight that these people are going through.
Instead, it's I'm going to fight against white privilege. Although I've lived one of the most privileged lives that has ever been lived in America. Yeah, I completely get he came from a tough starting point. That's completely true. And then he's been gifted and gifted and gifted and gifted for decades now. And it's just time for him to shut up. Play basketball.
Why doesn't he, with his hundreds of millions of dollars, go take it and donate it to maybe kids who are going through the same thing that he did as a kid, or struggling families in Los Angeles? Why doesn't he actually use his money for something? Because I have no problem with him making as much money as
whatever
he
the
wants
market will
to.
bear.
I mean, he deserves all of that. I have a problem with complaining about the money that you make when there's people who are struggling. I mean, why? Like I said, why not take that money and go help people with it? He can certainly afford it, and if he's at home not doing anything, what else is he going to do?
Yeah, and he did
put your money to use.
He did start some sort of a school for like underprivileged children or something
really?
last year.
Okay. Well, I stand corrected.
Well,
Sorry.
he did, but then like even when he did that, like it just got infiltrated with like BLM messaging and this kind of thing. And so it goes from, I'm going to do a good thing for these children to I need to push my political views.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, that's just what's frustrating, I think, about the whole thing. Some people would argue that we as everyday Americans, we don't understand what it's like to play in professional sports season. It's one thing maybe for Shaq to criticize LeBron and say, I've been through this. But it might be another thing for an everyday American like us to say, it's like, don't complain about this job, just play basketball. Some people are offended by that comment. What would you say to that? How do you feel about that kind of sentiment?
Well, I think one of the things that makes this story so powerful is the fact that LeBron's being called out by somebody who does actually understand the deal. You know, this is not George Upper saying, "Come on, quit whining." This is not even Scott Van Pelt or Chris Collingsworth or some other sports commentator who I really admire. I don't like either of those guys. This is somebody who's lived the life. He knows what the workouts are like. He knows how many hours are required and what's involved in all of this. And that's what makes this work, is that these two people are sort of peers and can have that conversation. LeBron James is not a peer of anyone in this room. It's a totally different lifestyle, totally different lives we've lived, totally different backgrounds. In some ways better, in some ways worse. I will grant him that. Anybody who is living the lifestyle that LeBron James has lived just doesn't. Hey, look, it's a free country. You can say whatever you want. You got a right to make yourself sound like a moron by speaking whatever moronic things you want to speak. That's fine. That is, I will actually defend your right. I will physically defend your right to do that.
Yeah.
But dude, but why would you want to? Why would you want to make yourself look out of touch and not very thoughtful and And to do it, permanently on the internet, you're not chatting with a friend. You're putting this out somewhere where it's never going to go away.
Right.
Why would anybody do that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Shaq put it perfectly in saying, when you make all that money, you really have no reason to complain. Even you will do as many workouts, games back to back as they ask you to when you're making that much money. And I'm sure the three of us in here, there's weeks or days when we work more hours than we would like to, and we feel tired when we get home, or at the end of the week we have to work an extra day, something like that. But we're all thankful at the end of the day that we have a job.
That, but in theory, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I've seen other people do that. Yeah, so I can sympathize.
George is the one ordering us to work.
Right, he's saying,
extra
can you
time.
stay another day?
So he can go home.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
At the end of the day, we're thankful to have that job and to make the money. And we're not making anything nearly close to what LeBron is, and we don't complain. And so, I think just there's a sense of needing to be humble here, and I don't think LeBron has been humbled in a long
I think
time.
that's a great word, Joey. Yeah. That's a great word. Shaq just comes and has always, actually, in my opinion, Shaq has always come across as a guy who's just very grateful.
Yes,
he's humble and appreciative of the blessings that he has had, which are different from the blessings I've had. They're not the same blessings. He's had struggles I haven't had, and vice versa. But you look around, you look at your life, and you find the things that you're grateful for, and whether that's a $30,000 a year salary or a $30 million a year salary, at 30,000, look, I've lived on $30,000 a year. It's not as fun as living on more than that, but I never missed any meals either, and so I could be grateful for that. They might not always be the meals I wanted. There's probably more mac and cheese in there than I'd choose, given my druthers, but I'm grateful for that. I've never had to miss a meal. Pretty much in America, nobody has to miss a meal.
That's
and
so true.
Let's just be grateful for the small things. And then look, if on top of that you're making $30 million a year, I think you can find something else to say thank you for.
Yeah.
So, can we just do that? So, but, this kind of privilege, this kind of entitlement thinking is not limited to the sports world. Unfortunately, we see evidence of it in political world all the time as well, Joey.
Absolutely, we do. First, I want to ask you guys, what's the worst nightmare you could imagine having in the middle of the night in your sleep? What would it be?
To me, it's like running from something. I hate when I have that dream.
Something.
I'm like running, something's chasing me, and then you just can't. It's just continually chasing you, and it never catches you. But you just keep running. It's kind of dark, but
mine's kind of similar to that. Actually, it's zombies. I don't like zombies. I don't like. I'll watch a zombie movie that's fine. Doesn't bother me. Scary movies don't really bother me. Don't scare me much. But I don't like zombies because I only have one strength going for me, Joey. This is the truth. I only have one skill, and my skill is I don't stop. Whatever it is that I'm after, I just keep chasing it. I just hit my head against the wall until I hear I get sick of listening to the smushy sound. That's the only thing I got going for me. The only people who can beat me at that, zombies. They don't have to breathe. They can walk underwater. I can't, if I had to run away from you guys, I am fully convinced that I could just run long enough that you'd be like, forget it, I'm done.
That's what we'll be doing after the show today.
That's right. A little later on. Zombies don't give up like that. So that's my nightmare. Zombies.
So, my nightmare is I wake up and I hear this horrifying laugh, and it kind of sounds like a witch, a cackle.
Like Josh Manning.
Yeah, like Josh Manning, like you hear from his office a few times a day.
Cackle.
Except for it's coming from Kamala Harris, and you all of a sudden work for her. And unfortunately, there's about 22 people living this nightmare right now, every day of their lives, and they are speaking out about working for Kamala Harris in the Biden administration. First, I want to bring up a quote from Joe Biden on his inauguration day, where he said, "I'm not joking when I say this. If you're ever working with me and I hear you treat another colleague with disrespect or talk down to someone, I promise you I will fire you on the spot. No ifs, ands, or buts. Everybody is entitled to be treated with decency and dignity. That's been missing in a big way the last 4 years. Well, it sounds like Joe Biden needs to fire Kamala Harris and the people running her side of the administration. Apparently, it's just a toxic, horrible work environment. There have been, it was 22 staffers or people related to the White House who came out and said working for Kamala and her chief of staff is abusive. They are like forced to work these crazy hours. There's no management. It is just
I bet I
terrible.
know what she would say to that. I bet I
What'd
know
she say?
how she would respond to that. It's coming.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
See, Russ, I tried to set you up. Russ. Yeah. So, no, she, we have a history of her responding to things like that.
Yeah, I mean, often Kamala Harris just likes to laugh things away when she's confronted with any sort of serious moment. I mean, her cackle has become like the most famous
legendary.
thing. Oh yeah, there she is cackling right there.
Here we go. Yep.
That's my nightmare. That's my nightmare.
It's the
I
face.
hear that
it's
in
the
my
face
sleep.
too, though. It's not just the laugh; it's also the
Yeah.
face. I think in my nightmare it would be it would just be like zooming in on
the
her face.
Yeah, you wake up and that's staring over your face. I mean, I
Terrifying.
can't imagine. You wonder if it's Kamala Harris or is it the Wicked Witch of the West waking you up? You don't know. You don't know. It could be either
there's
one.
a discernible difference.
It's not
I
sure that there
I
is.
don't know that it matters.
She is from California, so
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
the
right.
West.
Yeah.
But this has just been Kamala's time as VP, I think, has been quite a disaster. I mean, she's had some terrible foreign trips. She has these moments where she laughs at serious questions, and aides and her staffers are just like distraught over this. Like her side of the administration is falling apart. Apparently, she scheduled her trip to the border and didn't tell like 90% of her
Right,
staff,
right.
and they were completely blindsided by it. And they're like, "Oh, we're given no direction on what to do. There's no management, and now she wants us to plan this trip to the border." And it's gotten so bad that two of her top travel aides have quit this week. And I mean, these are longtime administration officials. They worked for Obama and they were in really good jobs with the vice president. And around the same time this report comes out, they're out of the administration. And then we have another famous politician. Some might call him a sexual predator. Come to her defense, Mr. Bill Clinton.
You know, if I were looking for somebody to come to my defense, I would go to a guy who maybe got disbarred for perjury. I think that's where I'd go. Looking for somebody to credibly defend me. I'd be looking for somebody not only who got disbarred. That would be good. That'd be, that would be kind of table stakes. But I'm really looking for somebody who got disbarred specifically for lying under oath. Those are the guys that I listen to a lot. I think they get a lot of credibility. So, yeah, I can totally see why she'd want him to stand up in her defense.
So something interesting. So Kamala Harris, chief of staff, her name is Tina something. Sorry, I don't know where her last name is. Her name's Tina.
We'll just call her Tina.
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
She ran Bill Clinton's office, I think the Oval Office, for 8 years. So Bill Clinton knows this lady well and claims that all these things being said are lies and that she's this great person. But I don't believe the guy who had an Oval Office affair with his intern and then lied about it. Like this, and then you got about Hillary and like Benghazi and stuff like that. Like I couldn't think of people I trust less in America than the Clintons. And I can't believe that the Democrats are using Bill Clinton's name like he is this radiating message of truth and accuracy. Like, oh, Bill Clinton is the gold standard of truth in America. It's very alarming. And then the other defense for this is, oh, well, Kamala and her chief of staff, they're both women of color. So this is just hatred towards women of color.
Right.
Her administration is a disaster. What do you guys think of this? Do you think this shows Kamala Harris, basically an extension of who Kamala Harris is as a leader and as a person? Or do you think that it's truthfully just staffers complaining about nothing?
Well, I'm kind of afraid to answer that question because I'm afraid I might get interrupted by our vice president.
You never know.
Mr.
I'm
Vice
speaking.
President, I'm speaking.
There you go. It's almost
I'm
like I
speaking.
saw it coming.
I'm speaking.
Vice President Harris has had this reputation for a long time. This has followed her from office to office. This is not new. I don't have any trouble believing that this is who she is. Look, you've got to be tough to get into these positions.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. I am sure there are for every 5 minutes of the vice president's time, there are probably people who want about 5 hours of her time.
Yeah.
So I get it. You've got to have a chief of staff who's got to be, firm in protecting your schedule. I totally get that. But we're kind of back to, let's look at our last vice president. Like Mike Pence just was a sincere and did not seem not firm, but he certainly seemed more gentle. He seemed more kind, and whatever other problems we might have with Mike Pence.
I know someone who worked for Pence in the administration, by the way. So apparently a very kind boss.
That is certainly
great environment.
how he comes across.
Yeah.
So the comparison is just it's just night and day. It just, and we've probably all known people like this, people in similar positions. And actually, it goes back to, we could use LeBron and Shaq again if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Two people in very similar positions. One of them seems like somebody, I'd go have a beer with that guy. He seems okay. And another one, please stay out of my kitchen. I don't get off.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
And it's the same kind of thing. So, and I think a lot of that just has to do with what you said earlier, Joey, which is humility, which is a gratitude to be in the place that you're in and to have the influence that you have. And that's, I certainly understand humility being difficult. I understand pride being a result of original sin, and we all have some of that in us. I get it. And when you have people telling you how great you are, it just makes it that much harder, I'm sure. But some people seem to succeed in that, like Pence and like Shaq. Others don't.
Grant?
Yeah, I think it's like George said, it's not like it's, so far-fetched of an idea that Kamala Harris could act like this. I mean, we see this clip of her interrupting us over and over again. I think that's just kind of a summation of who she is. Like, you see the way that she talks to reporters, the way that she talks to people that she interacts with. She doesn't, I mean, maybe this isn't fair because I don't personally know Kamala Harris, but when I watch her interact with other people, she doesn't seem like a nice person. She seems like someone who is short with people. I saw that was one of the criticisms from an anonymous staffer who talked to Politico. He said, or she said, there's short fuses around this office, and that's kind of what I think of when I think of Kamala Harris. Mike Pence tries to say something in the debate, and she says, "I'm speaking," or a reporter asks her a question, and she says, "Why have you never been to the border?" And she says, "Well, I've never been to Europe." Like, it's just like short fuse, just like easily frustrated, easily annoyed. And I can definitely see how that could come across to her staffers, and that wouldn't be an environment that I would want to work in. I understand that.
How did we elect a vice president who's never been to Europe? I mean, this is the person who's
shocking.
second. Yeah, if something happens to Joe Biden, God forbid, and I really truly mean that, she's going to be the one responsible for U.S. foreign policy. And she's never been to Europe. I mean, that's
never.
I mean, if she said, "Oh, I've never been to Thailand," okay, well, that's a little different. But I've never been to Europe. Like, I don't travel. I don't like to travel. And I've been to Europe, and I'm not vice president of the United States and have no interest in being vice president of the United States.
You're better suited to run U.S. foreign policy than Kamala Harris.
I think she'd have something to say about that if she heard you say that.
I think, and again, it is going back to the LeBron thing. I think just overall on the left, there's this just huge sense of entitlement. And so I think Kamala probably has that, as well as her chief of staff. And the great commentary writer, Chris Golden, who wrote about this, he said, Harris, who's been known for staff turnover, it looks like it would make a pickup basketball team looks stable. Like, that's how much her staff turns over. And Grant, you're right. The quote is, people are thrown under the bus from the very top. There are short fuses and it's an abusive environment. I mean, that means it's coming right from Kamala Harris. Like, she's an abusive person. I feel bad for her husband. I can't imagine what her home life is like, or what his home life is like.
He's definitely whipped.
I mean, do you guys remember when she complained about having to live in like the 60,000 square foot mansion across from the White House before their VP residence was done? I mean, this is just an entitled woman. And then there's a new report that came out today. I want to get your guys' thoughts on too. It ends up involving Trump a bit. There are apparently Democrats who are really close to Kamala Harris who are paranoid about her chances in 2024. Now, their hope is that Biden makes it through the presidency, he runs for re-election, but we have to remember Biden would be 82 years old when he would assume his next term. That's if he won. There's already questions. We have raised those questions about Joe Biden's mental capacity. Is Joe Biden in the early stages of dementia? There is strong evidence there that he potentially could be. And so therefore, Kamala Harris would either become president if Biden didn't make it through his term, or she's presumed to be the nominee in 2024. So apparently Democrats don't think that Kamala Harris can beat Trump or any GOP candidate in 2024.
I don't agree with the Democrats too often, but I'm with them on this.
Yeah, and that's partially because of all of her blunders. They think, I mean, it's widely agreed even among Democrat circles that her trip to Guatemala and Mexico was just an utter disaster. She has had terrible optics. I mean, almost every interview she gives, when she gets a tough question, she laughs it off or gives some ridiculous answer. Again, I think that's that sense of entitlement coming out. One Democrat operative went so far to say she's effing up. Maybe she shouldn't be the heir apparent. So they're now questioning, should Kamala Harris even be the one that takes Joe Biden's place? Now, this is all very interesting. And it's interesting this report comes out as there's disaster in her office and aides are leaving and coming out and talking about how abusive it is. Things aren't looking good for Kamala Harris. Do you guys think that Trump would beat Kamala Harris in 2024? If he ends up running, becomes the nominee, I'm not saying he will or he should, but if it's Trump versus Harris, who wins in that matchup?
Grant?
I think any of the nominees that have been talked about for the Republican Party would easily beat Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
I was telling somebody else in the office today, as a Republican, I'd be ecstatic if Kamala Harris won the Democratic primary.
Me too.
She was the nominee because I think she would lose to not only Trump, I think she'd lose to DeSantis. She would lose to Nikki Haley if she were to run. I think that all these people that we've talked about being possibly the nominee for the Republicans, I think would have a better than good chance of beating Kamala Harris. So, yes, I do think Trump would beat her. I think that it would be a good thing for Republicans if she were to be the nominee.
I have a T-shirt that I've had for years and years and years, and it's just a bunch of pictures of Chuck Norris's face.
Yeah.
And he's acting, and it shows all the emotions that he's displaying. You know, angry, sad, joyful, happy, embarrassed,
I see where this is
whatever.
going.
And they're all the same face. They're all the same face. I keep that T-shirt because it's super comfortable. It's kind of torn up now. It's very faded. You have to look, pay close attention. You actually get the joke kind of now. I think if that T-shirt ran on the GOP ticket, it would beat Kamala Harris. I think anyone running against Kamala Harris is going to win. So I've talked to my T-shirt. It has no plans to run. It claims, but we'll see what happens.
Well, people on the left don't like her either. That's why she didn't do well in the Democratic primaries this time
She
around.
lost her home state of California. I'm just brutally. I think she dropped out before even the primary in California because she knows she couldn't win it. She got less than 1% of the vote in the primary. I see that continuing in 2024. Apparently, there's also a feud going on between Harris and Biden. They are not getting along right now. So things just look really bleak for the Biden administration. Who knows? Maybe Trump will run. There's a little bit of controversy right now. Some issues going on in the Trump world. Trump is back with rallies, but there's been some news out in New York this week where the Trump org and its CFO have been charged in a tax evasion case by the Manhattan District Attorney.
That's
George has some pretty interesting information, maybe a bit of a dirty secret he didn't want to come out.
Yeah, Cyrus Vance, not a dirty secret I didn't want to come out.
No, not yet. No.
All my dirty secrets, I'm happy to have them come out. Cyrus Vance Jr., the Democrat, you don't want to hear them, but I have no objection.
But if you did, they would be.
Cyrus Vance Jr., the Democratic District Attorney for New York's Manhattan District, has been more than happy, as I'm sure you all know by now, to go on a fishing expedition against former President Donald Trump and the Trump Organization. But he isn't always this tough on public figures, and this is what he's not talking about right now. A New York grand jury, as you know, indicted the chief financial officer of the Trump Organization yesterday, as well as the organization itself, for an alleged, what people keep talking about as an alleged tax evasion scheme. They love to use the word scheme. It makes it sound so much more dirty and pre-planned and, conspiratorial. This scheme was about not paying taxes on fringe benefits like car leases and apartments, tuition, that kind of thing. The indictment came out yesterday and involves Alan Weisselberg, who was CFO of the Trump Organization, had worked for the Trump Organization for nearly 50 years, actually started working for Trump's dad before he worked for Donald Trump. And the claim is that he evaded taxes on about $1.75 million since 2005. Carrie Dunn, the prosecutor, had this to say in court. There's no clearer example of a company that should be held to account. It's not about politics.
Those two things seem to contradict each other.
I just...
Usually,
I feel like I need to wash my hands after I
usually, if
read
you
a
have
quote
to
like
say
that.
it's not about politics at the end, it's probably about
There you
politics.
Usually
go.
is, yeah.
That's exactly
Yes.
right. Why bother? If
Ding,
I
ding, ding.
read my grocery list to you, I do not end it with "it's not about politics" because the fact that we're out of bananas has nothing to do with my politics. So that wasn't anything about politics. But in 2015, model Ambra Bitalana Gutierrez came to the New York Police Department alleging she'd been groped by Harvey Weinstein. The NYPD set up a sting so that she could talk to him the next day and have that conversation recorded. Weinstein made some incriminating remarks on the audio, which the New Yorker released a couple of years later in 2017. But Vance declined to prosecute him. Now, in what is, I'm sure, an unrelated incident, Vance later accepted a donation from one of Weinstein's attorneys. I'm sure that was completely had nothing to do
coincidental.
with it. That was shortly after Vance had decided to drop the charges.
Yeah.
But, I don't even know why I'm bringing that. That wasn't political.
Yeah. Circumstantial.
I don't know
It's a
why I brought
nothing
that
burger.
up.
Motion to throw that out.
Nothing burger.
And of course, Vance's office did prosecute Weinstein eventually, once there were 25,000 women all with the same story. Even better, or worse, actually. In the case of Jeffrey Epstein, Vance argued to the Manhattan Supreme Court on behalf of Epstein in 2011 that his sex offender status should be downgraded from level 3, which is the most dangerous, to level 1, which is the lowest. Epstein had to register for sex offender status because of a 2008 guilty plea in Florida, in which he admitted to procuring a person under the age of 18 for prostitution and felony solicitation. But lowest level.
Sounds like a level
Lowest
1. That's a level 1 to me.
Yeah.
That person should be fine. That's somebody who I would expect someone in the prosecutor's office to defend.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
Good people.
So what do you guys think is the real motivation here for these charges? Is the DA pursuing justice, or is this strictly an anti-Trump political move despite their claims to the contrary?
So I think it all boils down to one thing. And I think there's things intertwined to get to this one thing. But I think the main reason they're doing this is because they're terrified of Trump running again in 2024.
Yeah.
So they're going to do whatever they can to kick the legs out from underneath him to stop him from running in 2024.
Grant, do you think it's more fear of the future, or do you think this is more about anger at the past? Like they're still so mad at him for his first term.
I think it's really a combination of both things. I think both can be true at once. I think it's really interesting as you were reading that, those three cases, you got one case at least with Weinstein where he has very good evidence. Like you said, he has,
It's an audio
Weinstein
recording.
on
Yeah.
tape saying things that could be incriminating. And he says, I don't really want to pursue this. Then you have multiple legal experts here in this case who are saying, you don't have very much evidence at all. If you read these reports,
Right.
the evidence is not in the reports, and the reports don't lie. And he's like, this is something worth
Right.
prosecuting. So it's just
Right.
so backwards.
Grant totally picked up my grift there. I don't know if you noticed that, but when you ask me the either or question, I always tell you it's both.
Yeah.
And you just totally stole that grift.
Yeah.
Which
You did.
is
You're
either
becoming a
really
grifter.
either really admirable intern behavior or terrible. And I'm going to have
Trying
to
to
think
get a
about
job.
which one it is.
Well, what I will say is I think it's also ironic when you talk about the future. To me, I actually think it's more about the past if I had to choose. I think that they're really frustrated at Trump, at the way things went, and on the fact that, they've been trying to get him on multiple things since he was elected, and they really have never gotten him on as big of charges as they want. It's just been really select, small charges.
Yeah.
But I think that when you look at the future, what Democrats don't seem to understand is that these, all of these lawsuits they're trying to bring against Trump, they're not going to take the legs out from under him. I mean,
Yeah, his base isn't
the
going
people
anywhere.
who are
They're
going to vote
gonna
for
make him
Trump are going to
angrier.
vote for Trump.
Yeah,
And
no, you're absolutely
you
right.
see a small thing like,
Yeah.
oh, he gave a car and didn't pay
matter.
taxes or whatever. Like these things are baked into the cake when it comes
These
to
people
Trump.
don't like the tax code to begin with.
Right.
So
Yeah.
other people evading it doesn't bother them. Okay, I got to ask one more question because we are just about out of time. Kayla is no doubt in the control room saying, no, George, you're way over time at this point. But I can't not ask this question because that was my grift. No, this is my actual grift. Dumb or dishonest? Does Cyrus Vance seriously believe these charges are worthwhile result of a 3-year investigation involving who knows how many full-time government employees, how many millions of dollars? Or is he completely aware that this prosecution is inappropriate and unjustified and just lying about it to the public? Grant, dumb or dishonest?
I think the last time we did this game, I went with dishonest, and I think I'm going to have to go with dishonest again, only because, this guy is an attorney. He may not be a very good attorney. Obviously, he's got some problems, but he knows what's worth prosecuting and what's not. He knows the law. I think
Fair
that he
answer.
is just twisting it to try to do what he says. I mean, as I always say, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is dumb. But I think,
answer.
that most of it is dishonesty.
Joey, dumb or dishonest?
Well, I think he's dishonest, but I also think he's an idiot. But I think mostly dishonest, so I'm almost grifting you. But
You are.
By the way,
I'm getting grifted on both sides here.
I read something that said, oftentimes in cases like this, they don't actually charge anyone. You just get fined and you pay
Right. Civil
back money.
lawyers handle
Civil
this
stuff.
stuff.
It's
Yeah.
settled outside
Yeah,
of court,
yeah.
all that. The other thing I have to say is, anybody who doesn't go after Epstein and Weinstein, also, you notice their names both end in
Yeah, I
the
know.
same.
Yeah,
It's
weird.
kind of weird.
Interesting.
You're just a horrible person and dishonest person if you do that, and then take money related to a sexual predator. You're just dishonest, and you're a bad person. And all this money has been spent going after Trump Org, and his associates. Why has no money been spent by any district attorneys to investigate and go after Hunter Biden for concrete evidence?
Yeah.
Still don't know why that is, but they go after Trump.
I actually got to go with the same grift. I'm going with dishonest, but dumb because he thinks it's going to work.
Yeah, that's
Both of
great.
those-
Yeah,
both
good
those
point.
things are in play.
Be curious if he gets off. If he ends up.
They're really going after him to get to Trump, as
Yeah,
we all know.
totally.
We'll see what
They
happens.
ended up not charging Trump, which was
Yeah,
Interesting.
they had nothing
They had
to charge
nothing,
him with.
yeah.
They're hoping to get some if they can get Weisselberg to testify.
Yeah.
I'm sure
They've been
I
hoping for a
mentioned-
while.
Yes, they have since 2015 at least. I mentioned early in the show how you can support Western Journalists' mission to raise up next generation of conservative journalists, and that is so important because journalism claims to be unbiased. It rarely is. What it can often be is fair, But human beings have biases. We bring biases to whatever we do. And the best thing that we can do is tell you what they are so that you can evaluate what we're telling you on that basis. We are not shy that we are a Christian conservative publisher of news and commentary. We never will be shy about it. We're always going to tell you exactly what we're doing. Here's how you can help raise up that next generation of journalists. Right now, for a limited time, when you purchase an annual membership to the Western Journal by going to westernjournal.com/join, westernjournal.com. Oh, look, it's right there on the screen. westernjournal.com/join. It's so much nicer to look at that than Kamala Harris.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
You can get, there are a couple of different membership levels there. You can check those out, but we're going to give you 2 months free. You get the annual membership, 12 months for the price of 10 months. That's about 16 2/3% off.
Get the math finally.
Yeah, I did. I actually did the math. Just a coincidence that Joe Biden's also saving you 16 cents. If you saw that news report on your 4th of July feast this year, we're giving you 16 2/3%. That's a little bit better deal, just a little bit. Please check out westernjournal.com/join. Help us in this fight against fake news and establishment media bias. I promise you we will not break your bank account. So go to westernjournal.com/join and become a member today. And with that, we're going to have to say so long until Wednesday. We will not have a show on Monday, July 5th. We'll have the offices will be closed. We'll be enjoying time with our friends and families, celebrating the birth of this great nation of ours. I hope you will be able to do the same thing. But we will be back Wednesday the 7th. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, except this coming Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, here on WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. So have a great 4th of July, everybody, and maybe a 5th of July if you're doing that thing. And we'll see you again next week. Stay safe and take care.
That was a fun one.
Josh, did you hear? They're putting the Libertarian back on the podcast.
No.
Oh? You didn't see the calendar?
No.
You should talk to Kayla about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, who's on the show Tuesday?
You and Joe.
Yeah. Like he's back.
Yeah, no, you and Joe. You
The
should
Libertarian?
Yeah, Libertarian Joe.
He's not back.
You should just go in the studio and check it out.
You're messing with me.
Okay.
Okay. Nice joke, Kayla. Got me to go to the studio.